On page 117, we're going to play the two most used scales in the first position, not using open strings. The first one is A flat major, and the second one is D flat major. A flat major is from the fingering type 4, where you stretch your fourth finger. We did A major in second position. First position is A flat major. Four flats: B flat, E flat, A flat, and D flat. Let's play A flat major exercise in first position on page 117. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, since it's a new position, you have to think of different notes. But the fingering should be familiar. So that should help you when you see something go up the scale. Let's say the second measure in the second line. You see, and that's from. And make sure that you stretch that fourth finger, not move the whole hand down. This is the biggest stretch that you're going to do, because the frets are further apart from one another than they are in the higher frets over here. So stretching with your fourth finger is much harder in the first position than in the fifth position. We're going to now play the D flat major scale in the first position using fingering type 3. As we play D major in second position, we're going to play D flat major scale in the first position. Here's the D flat major scale. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a few hard melodies in there to hear, and you might be thinking that you're playing it wrong. There's a skip in the second, actually it's in the third line, first measure, where it sounds like this. The exercises are getting harder because Bill has assumed, and I'm starting to assume, that you know the fretboard better and you can start reading. If you're having problems with this, play it very slowly. Say the names of the notes to yourself as you're playing. Also, watch the movement of the scale. In the third line, third measure, that's the whole D flat scale in the first position. So make sure you have the fingering and play slowly at first, and then slowly build up both the speed and the accuracy. After you do that, we have a first position review. What else? Once we learn the scales, we need a review page. So in this, we modulate from D flat to A flat. And we're in 3/4 time, so there are 3 beats per measure. With this first position review, I'm going to play swing eighth notes, or that quarter note, eighth note triplet feel. One, two, three, 1, 2, 3. When I play the chords for this exercise, I'm going to do long, short, short, long, short, short, long, short, short. Here are the chords for the first position review. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. On page 119 and 120, we have the 4 most used major scales played in the 4th position. They are G major scale, D major, And if you look on page 120, A major, and E major. We'll start with the G major scale. The G major scale is in the fourth position, but it's fingering type 1A. So our first note and our root is a finger stretch to the third fret. And then we stretch again. Fingering type 1A. Here's the exercise, G major, fourth position. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a measure in this exercise that you have to flatten your second finger. In the third measure of the third line, when I play E to C, I have to play, taking it from the second measure in the third line, Bill always wrote interesting exercises, and he really always had a plan, using harder intervals as the book progresses, using more accidentals, more rhythms, harder positions. So if you're on page 119, he's saying, yeah, I can throw a couple of things at you without even saying anything and seeing if you could play it. The second scale in the fourth position is D major scale. Fingering type 1, like C major in second position. Here's the D major scale exercise in the fourth position. 1, 2, 3, 4. One of the odder parts in this is the first measure on the third line. D, A, G, F sharp, G, G sharp, A, back to G natural. then in thirds. On to page 120, where we have the third of the 4 most commonly used scales in the 4th position, and this is the key of A. The major scale fingering is the fingering type 2, which is 2nd finger on 6th string. Make sure you practice the first lines of each of these exercises which state the scale. Here is A major scale fingering type 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. That was the A major scale in the 4th position. The next scale we're going to do is the E major scale in the 4th position. That's using fingering type 3. Remember, 4th finger on the 5th string, that's where the root is. Also remember that E has a D sharp. That's the only difference between A major scale and the E major scale. So if we know an A major scale, E major scale, D sharp, D sharp, D sharp. Here is E major scale in the 4th position using fingering type 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are the most commonly used scales in the 4th position. These exercises are very difficult to read, so you really have to work at the fingerings and play very, very slowly and try and focus on the notes that you're playing, just not the fingering. Of course, the hardest part of these exercises are the arpeggios that are stated in the last line of each of these exercises. Let's look at page 119 again. We're in the key of G and we're playing last line G. In the last line of the D major exercise. Here's the D major exercise with arpeggios. the last line of the A major exercise on page 120. And the last line of the E major scale. If you can play those and recognize the notes, you are saying to yourself that I know the area of the guitar much better in the fourth position. It's one thing to play things scale-wise, but another thing to read melodies that include arpeggios and leaps. Let's go on to page 121. This is a page of new chord forms. The chord forms on the top of the page is what combined together is what I would call a minor cliche. It's D minor, D minor major 7, D minor 7, D minor 6. Again, I'll play that again. And the next one is G minor, G minor, major 7, G minor 7, G minor 6. These are minor cliches. What it is a minor to minor major 7 to minor 7 to minor 6. And really the only thing that's changing is the root is going D, 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 C sharp, C natural, B natural. It's from the root and it goes down. The whole chord. Okay, how to finger this? We'll do the D minor. Well, we know our regular D minor in 5th position, root on the 5th string with our first finger. To get D minor major 7, we would keep our first finger down. Look at this. Get the C sharp. Notice that the 3rd finger comes down and replaces the 2nd finger. To get D minor 7, just lift up your 2nd finger. To get D minor 6, you replace the first finger with the 2nd finger. Now, if you look at it closely, you see how the notes change on the 3rd string. This is a very economical fingering. To get the minor cliche, which is minor, minor, major 7, minor 7, minor 6, with root on the 6th string, let's play our straight G minor. We're going to take the G on the 4th string and move it down to F sharp with our 2nd finger, play our regular G minor 7, and then go to G minor 6. So you're hearing da, da. I'll play exercise 1 slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, you could play the G minor 7 another way. You could play G minor major 7, G minor 7 like this. Either way is fine. It's your choice. On the 2nd line, the line underneath where it says exercise 1, is just another way of writing the minor cliche. It's very good and very useful to see different ways that these chords are stated. If I were to write it, I would say D minor major 7, D minor 7, D minor 6. On in the second line, and it's also correct, you can call it G minor, A augmented, D minor 7, D minor 6. And to me, that translates, same thing, G minor, D augmented triad, G minor 7, G minor 6. And I always interpret that as. So work on that very slowly till you can get the movement happening and it's not choppy. The bottom of the page, we have another minor ninth chord, A minor 9. It's from our regular A minor 7 that we have here, and we put the fourth finger on the first string. It's very closely related to this A minor 7, and doing that, or you can. Our next chord that we have is a dominant 7 sharp 9, and we'll use the A flat 7 sharp 9. And to me, the easiest way to do this is you play A flat 7, put your fourth finger on the second string and the first string. You know this sound. And the reason why we might play this dominant 7 sharp 9 like this, because it can go into a major 7 like this. And that's your last chord that's written there. Major 7. Really a spread voicing. And it's beautiful when you, it's really, how do we play this major 7? Well, let's just play G7 first. Now, you have to reach your fourth finger to the 7th fret and get the F sharp, the major 7, and the third. And what's very nice about this progression, and to play it this way, is that you have B, that one note on top the whole time. A minor 9, A flat 7 sharp 9, G major 7. Here's exercise 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. We practiced the 4 most commonly used keys in the 4th position on pages 119 and 120. And of course, now we're going to have our 4th position review. This is a musical statement that covers all 4 keys. We're modulating from one to another in the 4th position. I'm going to play swing 8th notes with this, which is the triplet feel. Here is page 122, 4th position review. 1, 2, 3. At the bottom of the page, Bill writes, "Find additional reading material. Be sure it is easy to execute. Then read 5 or more pages every day. Play each page not more than twice through. Do not practice, do not memorize, and do not use the same pages on consecutive days. Vary the material and read, 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 read." What does that do? That makes it so that you're comfortable at reading, that you're not memorizing the pieces, and that you're starting to react quicker, and you're starting to recognize the notes and starting to recognize the rhythms. And here are the chords for the 4th position review. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. On page 124, and oh my gosh, it's the last page, we have some more fingerings. We have a new dominant 7 flat 9 form. It's the diminished chord. We don't have any roots in the dominant 7 flat 9 chord in this form. What we do have is that 1 fret below each of these notes can be the root of a dominant 7 flat 9. Let's go over this. Here's the note E. It can be an E flat 7 flat 9. Here's a note B flat. It can be an A7 flat 9. Here's the note G. It can be an F sharp 7 flat 9 or G flat 7 flat 9. And here's a note C sharp. It can be a C7 flat 9. So this form, we can call it 8 different chords. This can be an E diminished, a B flat diminished, a G diminished, a C sharp diminished. This can be an E flat 7 flat 9, an A 7 flat 9, an F sharp 7 flat 9, or a C 7 flat 9. So it does get confusing. What I would do is that I would call it one chord first. In other words, I would say, okay, I'm going to use this as a dominant 7 flat 9 with root on the 3rd string, 1 fret before the fingered note. So this is always an A7 flat 9. Looking at the 6th position here, we can call this a C7 flat 9 because here's the note C. And then you can start saying, okay, I want it, call this a dominant 7 flat 9, 1 fret below the 2nd string that's fingered, E flat 7 flat 9. So if I move it down here, I can call this a D7 flat 9. Just slowly start to recognize the chords. The other form that we're going to have is these are really repetition of forms. Remember we had this, and we called this a D7 flat 5. We said root 2. Well, we can also call this root 6, an A flat 7 flat 5. If you know this form. So again, now for a flat 5, we can have this as 2 different flat 5 chords. Root 2, D7 flat 5, root 6, A flat 7 flat 5. And the only other chord that we're going to look at in this book is a dominant 7th chord, just another fingering for it. Let's take G7. We know this. Root 6. We're going to have another root 6, but it's more compact. It's this. G7. D, B, F, G. Physically, how do we get this? Easier if we know a G6 chord and just put our first finger on the 6th string and move this here, we get an easy way of playing this G7. I personally like this form better than this form, but you have your choice. Let us look at the exercise. First of all, E minor 7, A7 flat 9, D minor 7, G7 flat 9, C major 7. Let's look at that again. E minor 7, A7 flat 9. Why is that A7 flat 9? Well, here's the note B flat. 1 fret before B flat is A. D minor 7, G7 flat 9. Here's the note A flat. 1 fret before A flat, G. C major 7. Let's just take those measures. The last measure on the first line, A7 sharp 5. Get the new dominant 7th form for A7. All we have to do is switch these 2 fingers and A7 sharp 5, A7. D7, A flat 7 flat 5, root 6. Remember, we could also use root 2, but root 6, G7 sus C, or G7 sus 4, or G7, G11, G13, or you could also do it this way. Now we have voicings written out. Here's the 6th form that we learned a few pages ago. D minor 7 flat 5, D flat 9, C major 7. I'll play the whole exercise. 1, 2, 3, 4.